Hi, and welcome to another edition of Screencasts Online. Today we're going to look at 3 apps from CrossForward Consulting that may help you get more out of your Apple Watch and be more motivated to get some exercise. We love metrics, and this might help. These apps are available from plusplusapps.com. The first one I'm going to show you is called Activity++, which allows you to view your activity as measured by the Apple Watch in more interesting ways than the built-in activity app from Apple. It's one of those apps that doesn't do a lot, but what it does well. The second app is Workouts++, which is a really powerful app. It'll cost you $4.99 US, but it has a lot of capability. I'll be showing you how you can create custom watch faces that show you the metrics you care about in really interesting ways. Finally, as a little bonus, we'll take a look at Pedometer++. That will show you the one thing you can't get from the standard Apple apps, and that's graphs of your steps over time. If you like the Fitbit metrics on steps and floors climbed, you'll really like Pedometer++. In 2015, when the Apple Watch first came out, Don gave us a deep dive into both the activity and health apps from Apple, and they haven't changed much since then. He also gave us a tip very recently about the activity app on the Apple Watch. I'm going to briefly review the data you see on the Apple Activity and Workout apps on iOS and the Apple Watch, just to refresh you on what options are available out of the box. Then we'll dive deep into Activity++, Workouts++, and Pedometer++.